Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to talk about a phenomenon that has absolutely haunted pretty much every single one of us at some point in our lives. We're talking about our brain's spectacularly bad timing when it comes to nervous laughter. Why is it that when the stakes are highest, when the room is dead quiet, and when the situation is at its absolute bleakest, like, say, your boss telling you the company is downsizing, our bodies decide that right now is the perfect, absolute best time to let out a little tee-hee?
Have you ever laughed at a funeral? I know, it's terrible to admit. Or maybe during a really intense breakup. Or right after someone told you they totally failed a massive exam. If you are physically cringing right now, just remembering a moment like this, I want you to take a deep breath with me. You are experiencing one of the most universally horrifying, guilt-ridden social anxieties shared by the human race. You knew exactly where you were, you knew exactly what the serious moment called for, and you've laughed anyway.
But here is the really good news. You are not a monster. You're not a secret psychopath completely devoid of empathy. When you laugh at something that is absolutely, objectively not funny, your brain is just acting like an overloaded circuit board. Laughter, as we're going to see, isn't always about amusement. Very often, it is an emergency pressure valve for an entirely overwhelmed nervous system.
Section 1. The absolute worst timing, or when your body betrays you.
Okay, let's dive into this biological reality. Nervous laughter isn't a response to a joke. It's a physical reaction to tension, confusion, or severe anxiety. I absolutely love this quote from the brilliant neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran. He basically says we use nervous laughter to trick ourselves into thinking a horrible thing isn't actually horrible. Think about the sheer psychological gymnastics happening there. Your brain is in aggressive denial, acting like an overzealous bodyguard, forcing a laugh to trick your own body into believing that you are safe.
Section 2. Your emergency pressure valve and Milgram's shocking discovery.
So just how extreme can this defense mechanism actually get? Let's look at one of psychology's most famous and, quite frankly, most stressful studies ever conducted, the Stanley Milgram obedience experiment. Subjects who were acting as teachers were told to deliver electric shocks to learners every time they answered a question wrong. Now, no one was actually being shocked, but the subjects fully believed they were. It was a terrifying, highly stressful situation. And what was the subject's reaction to hearing the false screams of pain? Many of them exhibited giddy, nervous laughter, and they weren't sadists enjoying the pain. The researchers noted they showed signs of extreme tension and conflict. Their brains were literally short-circuiting from the massive anxiety of hurting someone, and that pressure valve just popped open in the form of completely inappropriate laughter.
Section 3. The science of mixed signals, or dysmorphous expressions. We've talked about laughing at terrible things. But what about expressing negative emotions during overwhelmingly positive things? In a fascinating 2015 study, researchers measured people's responses to extremely cute babies, what they called infantile stimuli. A dysmorphous expression is when we experience one very strong emotion, but physically express two simultaneously in a totally disorganized way. Because our physical output is so incredibly scrambled, anyone watching us has to rely entirely on context to figure out if we're actually happy or angry. Which leads us directly to that universally recognized, kind of weird feeling. I want to eat you up through gritted teeth. We call this playful aggression. I mean, why on earth do we want to violently squish the cheeks of an adorable little puppy? It's the exact same glitch. Our positive emotions, our care and our adoration, become so overwhelming, the brain essentially panics. It totally dysregulates and throws a wildly inappropriate negative expression into the mix just to try and balance you out.
Section 4. The incongruity short circuit and the playful turn.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact cognitive gymnastics your brain does to flip that switch to laughter. The play-mirth theory argues that humor requires a rapid, instantaneous cognitive shift. You start with something serious, a threatening, important, or severe situation. Then, your brain perceives an incongruity, rapidly downgrading it to non-serious or playful. Let's say your highly intimidating, terrifying boss is giving a stern lecture, and then you realize they have a giant piece of spinach stuck right in their front teeth. You go from serious to non-serious in a fraction of a second. This rapid shift, this playful turn, triggers a sudden dopamine reward in your brain. You laugh because a perceived threat or serious tension was just instantly downgraded to harmless nonsense.
Section 5. A true neurological glitch. When it's not just awkwardness.
Now,
Up to this point, we've been talking about everyday, relatable social awkwardness, but it is absolutely crucial to note that sometimes laughing at the wrong time isn't just a quirk of social anxiety, it's a true neurological glitch. Pseudobulbar affect, or PBA, is a neurological disorder causing brief, intense, and completely uncontrollable episodes of laughing or crying. Unlike a nervous chuckle, PBA is typically the severe consequence of actual brain injuries or underlying neurological diseases like ALS, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or a stroke. The neural networks that regulate the motor output of our emotions are physically disrupted.
When we compare the two side by side, a really clear contrast emerges. With your everyday nervous laughter, the trigger is high stress or tension, acting as a psychological defense mechanism. But with PBA, the trigger can be totally trivial. Someone simply saying hello might trigger intense weeping or uncontrollable laughter. The patient has a pathologically lowered threshold for emotional display. So while an awkward laugh is basically your brain overthinking, PBA is an unremitting physical disconnect in the neural pathways. It often leaves the patient feeling exhausted and misunderstood because their external display completely contradicts their internal mood.
And just to round out the clinical side of things, there is also the broader term inappropriate affect. Often observed in conditions like schizophrenia, this involves emotional expressions that are completely absent of a relevant stimulus. A person might laugh loudly in response to completely neutral or even somber internal thoughts. Again, this is vastly different from the tension-breaking courtesy laugh you give when a meeting gets uncomfortably quiet.
Section 6. Forgiving your awkward brain. Because, hey, it's just evolution.
Let's bring this explainer all the way back to your everyday life and why we should embrace our brain's spectacularly flawed timing. Laughter didn't evolve because a caveman told a great knock-knock joke. It evolved long before comedy even existed. It was a survival tool. It signaled safety and friendly play to the group, preventing unnecessary violence. Physically, genuine laughter releases endorphins and reduces the stress hormone cortisol. So when you're standing in an impossibly tense situation and you let out a nervous laugh, your body is unconsciously trying to regulate your stress, calm you down, and signal to the tribe around you that you mean no harm. It is deeply woven right into our survival. So, what does this all mean for us? The next time you laugh at the absolute worst possible moment, when the room is dead silent, the stakes are sky high, and you feel that wave of intense social guilt washing over you, will you remember that you aren't broken? You are just driving a beautifully complex, highly socially anxious survival machine that is desperately trying to keep you safe? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to be kind to your weird, awkward, wonderful brains.